Okay, time for an unboxing. I'm going to try to just get right into it. So, as the title will, tell you about it, this is a Longines, and it's one that I've been looking to get um, technically for a while, but we'll get into that. We'll just unbox it, so we're not looking at the box for too long. There we go, and zoom in. And this is it. This is the Longines L2.606.4 Weems Pilot Watch replica. They actually say replica actually on the case back. And so what Longines did was reproduce, or I guess technically reissue, one of their Weems style of pilot watches that were around during World War II. And yeah, so the backstory for me, if I can get into it quickly, was, Longines, I think, has been a pretty great brand that's reached into their past to bring a lot of heritage models, vintage models back into modern day. Some of them pretty faithful reissues, some of them a bit modernized, but no doubt they've had a lot of successes and some really standout pieces. I personally um, like they have like a tuxedo like chronograph. I think it's kind of like mid-century. Like it's got the black and white. It's got the blue text and blued hands, and I think it's you could call it a compact actually, but people will call it a bicompact because there's two subdials in white, and that one's pretty nice. They have a couple military issued watches that they brought back, such as the Heritage Military, which is I guess it's kind of like it's a, well, field and pilot watch is almost the same, but you've seen it. It's kind of got that. It's kind of famous for the sort of like Fotina dial with the speckles on like a kind of a ivory or off-white uh, creamy dial, and with blued hands. It's got no bezel. I think they were about 36, maybe 38 millimeters. Sorry, I forget. Um, but yeah, and then I was always thinking that ever since Dunkirk came out, seeing Tom Hardy's character, he's a World War II British, RAF Spitfire pilot, and you see him with a pretty cool pilot watch. It's part of the story, I guess, in the movie, as a lot of Christopher Nolan movies revolve around time and timepieces and watches, which is kind of cool, especially if you're a watch fan. And he had a Omega CK2129, which is another Weems style of pilot watches. And these were watches that I believe the British military, you know, put out an order for, to have like a number of manufacturers make somewhat similar to the Dirty Dozen, but this was more for really more focused towards pilots and maybe navigators. I would think timing, bombing, uh, raids, or missions would be important with having a good precise timepiece. And besides the CK2129 that Omega made back then, Longines was one of the other brands, and three others, or about five. And there's Movado, Zenith, and JOC, or I guess Lecoultre back then. I don't think they were known as JOC necessarily back then, but yeah, those were the five. And much like the Dirty Dozen, there's a number of interpretations of the specifications that they wanted in the watches, and they came together fairly similarly, but they all had little differences in how they approached it in this design. But this is one of the early designs of that. Basically, let's pick this up and take a look. And uh, yeah, so what you have here is a clean light colored dial, blued hands, black printed numbers. I think these are some of the requirements, like to have a cream dial or something, or white. And I guess because hacking watch movements wasn't really as, you know, predominant back then. A lot of them didn't hack, and to also keep the movement, I guess their idea was to keep the movement more reliable and simplified by not adding in a hacking feature. You know, that's what they did, and um, to remedy the fact that it doesn't hack, and precision is very important because they need to sync up all the watches with like one known source or signal that all the watches can be set to, so that they're all, you know, basically very accurate and in sync with each other. And to do this would be difficult with a non-hacking watch, right? So what I believe it was Lieutenant Colonel Weems, he was with the United States military. He developed um, this design to add a timing bezel on the outside. Actually, this is what we called, and this is the patent right here for this bezel, and it's called a, I believe it's called a second setting bezel. And what that means is, and I didn't even realize, I just thought maybe because of, you know, having dive watches, this is really just for timing, you know, a particular mission or, you know, navigation. Just you rotate this accordingly to time, you know, a certain amount of minutes pass before you need to, I don't know, maybe reach an objective and then maybe reset it and time again. I don't know, something like that. Maybe possibly for fuel calculations, whatnot. But what this was is a remedy for non-hacking watches. So what you do is this would be secured with the locking crown here, and instead of trying to sync the seconds with the top of the dial at the 12, which we normally do, right, with hacking seconds, and even if we didn't, I think we try to at least start a non-hacking watch and as close as possible to that top of the dial at the 12. This does it by resetting your reference point. So basically, um, you know, the second hands will start running as soon as you wind it, and then what you'll do is figure out where the zero at the top of the minute is, and with your whatever you're syncing it to, and then set it and rotate it to its that position for the second hand to meet. So say this is what I did with this watch. Um, it basically means that once the second hand hits right here, this is where I set the top of the minute. I lock it down and so it won't move. This is actually will be the start of the minute. So you'll see, right, this is 30 minutes past already, sorry, 30 seconds. And you see it's already halfway through the minute, the 42 and a half, right? As it gets to 43, this is 42 minutes and 45 seconds, 50 seconds, 55, and then this will be the start of the new minute at, I guess it'll be 1:43. And once you hit here, you see that that aligns with that 43 marker, right, at the 60. So that's how you do it. Real simple, actually. Pretty foolproof, and it's be quick to do. So that's how that's what the second setting bezel is used for. Not really for individually timing something. It's to set the top of the minute. So everyone can be in sync, and when you have to hit exactly a certain mark, making sure that everyone's on the same page at the same time. You know, even a couple of seconds, say in a bombing run, you could be dropping bombs and be off by several kilometers, if not miles, depending on how much off you are, right? So it's really critical to be really up to the second in synchronization. And then basically you just, you know, pull the crown out. It doesn't hack, of course, like I said. And then you set the time, you know, you can go either way. Either you can figure out the top of your minute is, start, and then you just rotate the hands until, you know, this hits the 60, and then you just move it till it reaches the minute mark that you're trying to sync it to. or you can do the minute mark first, and then you know, if you know where the start of the minute is, set it, and then just come back around and wait to see where the, you know, where to rotate this bezel so that it lines up with the second, so it'll be at the top of the minute, and then that way it'll all be synced up. It's kind of weird, but to think that this is the top of the middle here, but it actually does work. And that's that. And this doesn't lock. I have to check on the water resistance on this thing, but I can't imagine it'd be that much. But this is a very faithful reinterpretation or reissue of a replica, as they say back here, of the Weems style of pilot watches that they had back then. And there's, like I said, there's many variations. And I have to thank somebody for this. He's on his watch. It was actually on a post that I put about military watches on WatchCrunch, and if I could, I've looked it up. I forgot the name. I think it has Lively, something like that. Sorry, but I'll put it in the description of this video. But he kind of pointed me to actually another reference, because I had mentioned, like, well, and he showed some watches, and I said, oh, an actual Weems watch from World War II was a Movado. It didn't actually have the crown guards. Some of them did, some of them didn't have the crown lock, rather. And then later on, when they were able to hack the minute, the seconds hand and everything, they got rid of this bezel, and then it was just, you know, three-hander without the bezel. And obviously they didn't need a crown because of that. And you'll see that in later references. For instance, for Omega, I believe it would be the CK2229. And for instance, the Longines Heritage Military is also something very similar, where they lost the bezel, and it's just, you know, a clean three-hander without anything else. But going back to this one, the guy from WatchCrunch pointed me to a reference. I believe it was L2.606.4, and that one is, I believe it's limited edition, but not as much. And I had mentioned, like, I wish that Longines would put reissue, like, out of, and I would like to see a Weems pilot watch reissue, and out of all the ones that might have made one back then, I only could imagine Longines being the one to do it. And he said, hey, you know, actually they did do it quite a while ago. It's a limited edition, and I believe he said it was, I believe it is a Japan only. It was released in Japan only, as far as I understand it. And they did do one, and that was back in 95 or 97, right around that time, 1997. And then he sent me a link to someone selling one on eBay, and they can be found. They came in a similar dial configuration, but you know, in terms of colorways, it's sort of a sector dial with sort of this cream and silver. But instead, it was a bit larger, probably more comfortable for more people at 36 millimeters, and it had lume in the numbers, so it wasn't printed black, and it also had more of a stick handset with lume on it. And yeah, as well as, what else? Didn't have the red up there that you see up in this part of the chapter ring. Still had the rotating bezel, but the crown was at the 2, and again it was 36 millimeter, and it's automatic. And what I also didn't like about it was that they threw in a date window into that model. Why they did that, I don't know. They should have just left it out, and that would have been a pretty good one to get. But having that date window really throws off the aesthetics to me. And you know, they just didn't have it on that style watch back then. So yeah, I didn't like that. And I think that because there was loomed numbers on a light background, sometimes the outlines around those numbers could not be as, are not strong enough, so the contrast is a little bit less. So I don't know, it didn't look as good to me because of that. And they did have a blacked out version, which would have increased the contrast, but again, they had the date window, and I wasn't looking for a blacked out version of this. This is something with a light dial with these no lume, black printed numbers, blued hands, either like this or the kind of spade, or what do they call it, plum shaped hands. Um, would it look nicer? That's what I imagine a Weems style pilot watch to look like. And anyways, when they pointed me to that other reference that was larger, 36mm automatic movement, with a date and all that, that I mentioned, I started looking around, and I was interested in that, but I was like, it's not really what I'm looking for. And then somehow I came across this, and I realized that, I said, wait a minute, where's this one? And then I guess they also made a even more limited edition version that was, I think, maybe slightly prior to the automatic one. And yeah, there's only 1,000, again, only Japan, I believe, and limited to 1,000 pieces. And this is much more true to in scale to what they had back in World War II. So it is smaller, about 33 millimeters. It might be a touch over, and this was considered bigger back then. Originally, some of these were actually 27 millimeters, if you can imagine that. So this was 33, and I think I get mixed information. Some people say some of these might have been a little bit more at 34 millimeters, but I did measure this at about 33, and you can check it out here real quickly. I'm missing the mark here. Let me get out the crown. So it's a little bit over 33 point something, because the bezel does angle out a little bit. So maybe at the top it's more smaller, but that's basically it. And again, there's no screw down crown. It just winds like this. It's a manual movement only. It's basically they say, from what I've read, it's a modified ETA 2801. And so 17 joules, about 42 hours of power reserve. Yeah, and this allows it. It's a pretty thin movement and small, but it's supposed to be pretty robust and reliable. The lug to lug on this is pretty short too. It's like this, about under 41 millimeters from lug to lug. And I've measured this thickness to be about 9 point, let's see, 9 point from the crystal. It's ever so slightly down, just under 10 millimeters from case back to the top of the crystal. And I do believe this is sapphire. Pretty sure originally it was an acrylic, but yeah, this should be sapphire crystal as well now, which is a nice upgrade. I think that I appreciate that. And the bezel is bi-directional friction fit, so you just unscrew this and rotate it. I have it set now, so that's why I don't want to mess with it. I'm trying to gauge the performance on this. I mean, this watch is basically almost 30 years old. It's about 2023 October, and this came out right around, from what I can gather, basically around 1995. So yeah, we're just getting pretty close to 30 years old. But so far, seems to be running pretty good. It hasn't really deviated much, but I've only maybe been timing it for about, I don't know, 6, maybe 7 hours or so. This is 2 a.m. right now. Yeah. I got this after work, just picked it up from my post box and got it back. And yeah, I was nervous that this would be maybe not as good as what I was seeing at that eBay auction listing. It wasn't an auction, it was just for sale. But it said it was like mint, but there are some scratches. But I wouldn't say this is exactly mint, but it's in pretty good condition considering. There are some scratches here and there. You can see it on the high polish bezel. I mean, sorry, not bezel, the lugs, and some of the side profile here, but not too overly bad. I mean, you get more in the back, but this is all high polished anyway, so I think considering you're going to get it there no matter what. And you got a little bit of light engraving or etching. Swiss made Longines Weems pilot watch replica. Again, they are numbered out of 1,000. This is number 757. I don't think it really matters that I'm showing you the limited edition number. This has been out of production for a while, but just so you know. And then there's the model L2. Zoom in there. L2.606.4. And again, the other model that's larger is L2.608.4. That's at least for the cream dial one, like something similar to this, but of course with the lume and all that stuff that I told you. I'm not sure what the black one is, but I think you look for one, you'll eventually find the other one water resistant, but it doesn't say how much. I have to look it up, but I can't imagine it'd be over 50, if even that. But it's okay, I don't plan to get this wet. Again, manual wind, basically no date, which is good, and you just pull to get into the time setting, and that's it. Very simple. Let's take a look at the dial. It's pretty nice. It's got this nice sector dial kind of configuration, at least between the center and the outer. But if you count the outer track, that's, I guess, part of that sector design. It's not as complicated, intricate as some of the Longines other sector designs. That's like more of a dress piece where they have the crosshairs and maybe a small seconds, but still, I think it's pretty cool. Got this off-white, cream, or ivory dial, or section rather, where the numerals are, and then the center is brushed. You can see the texturing, and then actually the outer ring is actually metal or silver too, and it's brushed. If you really look closely, you can see it. And I like that little red accent at the 12. The hands are blued. Yes, thermally blued, of course. Very nice leaf hands. I think a lot of these might have come with the other kind, with the spade or I think it's called the plum style hands. But and then I've seen configurations very similar to this, but with the crown at the 2. But personally, I like it at the 4. I don't know. 2 works too, but for getting an offset crown onto here, I feel like when you add it to the top, it makes it feel a little bit top heavy or unbalanced. I figure if I'm going to add any visual weight, it should be below halfway below the other bottom half of the watch. It just seems to make more sense to me. And that's pretty much it to this. This is not the original strap. This is, I believe, the original buckle that came with the original strap. I've seen other pictures of, I don't know about this part, I would imagine it is too, but I've seen pictures of the, what it should come, this should have originally come with, and it is, it does have this kind of ribbed style of buckle, and this could use some work. Could probably be replated and re-chrome plated, but I'll worry about that later. I do have some other straps coming. Oh, and this is pretty small too. It is 16 millimeters. Let's see, maybe just a tad over, maybe. But you can find some straps that are that big. I actually got 2 incoming that should fit this at least, and I figured there are some, you can get some odd 17s, and I dare say you might be even possibly able to squeeze in an 18, which I'm going to try to do. I think certain NATO straps that are of a seatbelt or softer, somewhat softer quality, and if you use maybe even a curved spring bar, it may help to facilitate putting something just a little bit wider in here. So I'm going to give it a try just to see. I do have a number 18 millimeter strap, so I might as well, because I don't have any other watches now that use it. You can see the lugs curved down pretty nicely too. It's really pretty flat, doesn't bubble out in the back much either. Again, so this is not the original strap, but Matsushige, I mean, I got this in Japan, and I figured, well, it makes sense. Maybe they just replaced it with a new Japanese branded strap. It works. At first, in the pictures, I thought maybe this thing might be a little too thick and unwieldy for this watch, but actually it's pretty soft and actually fits around the wrist pretty good. And I did try that earlier. I want to show this next to something. Hang on a second. Okay, so just for size comparison, this is the Serica 5303. So this is a 39 millimeter diver, and this is 33. You can see it right next to each other. So it will wear smaller, but I do feel that, and I'll show it to you on my 7-inch wrist in a moment, that the rotating bezel, the way it's designed, adds a bit more visual weight kind of up top, as well as having these a pair of these oversized crowns helps out too, and they're pretty good. The grip's good on these, and hand winding it wasn't hard at all. And by the way, it is a signed crown here. It's very small and fine, but you can see the Longines logo and Longines written kind of like in a circular, rounded design around the crown like that. And yep. So yeah, so it's kind of cool that the watch that, as I said, that Longines should probably make, if they were to remake something like a Weems style pilot watch, turns out they actually did do it about almost 30 years ago. And I was still just started college, and I don't think I was that heavily into watches. Though I've always pretty much been, but not like I am now. And I think I still had my Tag Heuer back then, and that was good enough. I just had one, and that did the job. So here you go. Let me back up so you can see, hopefully. So this is what it is on my 7-inch wrist. You know what? Let me go down one size. Okay, that's better. Gives me a little bit of play here. So this is how it looks like on my 7-inch wrist. You know, it's not as small as you would think. Maybe a 33 could wear it. By no means is it large. I mean, it's definitely smaller than, say, how this would wear on the wrist. But this actually wears kind of surprisingly small too. Like for a 39, it feels like a 37 almost on wrist. 38 at least visually, bordering on almost 37, just the way this thing is designed and wears on wrist. But there we go. You see that? some perspective. And it's not bad. You just have to pair it with the right strap. I got a couple of things I want to try, and if I keep this long enough, you'll definitely see it. But I don't think it's that bad. I mean, you just have to. You don't have to, but I have to just take a moment to just get acclimated to the difference in proportions that I'm used to with, say 39 and up. But I have had smaller watches like in 34 and even 33 range like this. Vintage watches from the 70s. Like I had an Oyster Precision from Rolex. Really simple mechanical. It's not Oyster Perpetual Precision, which is like a mechanical hand wound version of like the Oyster, like the real simple time only watch. And the 33 that I had, 33 mil watch that I had was a Vacheron Constantin. Well, not had, I still have. It's a family watch, I guess. It was my dad's, and it's a real simple dress piece. It's a patrimony, white gold, silver dial, just two hands, and that's it. This dress watch, classic, very thin, but it's more dial, of course. Um, but you know, these are the sizes from back then, and this was considered large, I guess, back in the 40s when they designed this watch. And really 33, 34-ish had been around for a while. I'm sure up through the 60s, 70s, and even to the 80s, because a lot of my watches, when I think back, they were around 34 millimeters, even up to possibly even into 2000. Because I'm thinking I'm measuring I had a Skagen watch, which I got in early or mid 2000, and that wasn't that big actually. But going back, I mean, my swatches, they're all 34 millimeters. And so that's actually a pretty classic size. Um, yeah, it's 2023. Times have changed a bit, but I don't know. I think a classic watch and proportions will always be that, but not necessarily old-fashioned, and outdated. If you know what I'm trying to say and what the difference is between those two concepts. Anyways, I think this is a cool watch. I think I like the fact that it's um, you know a relatively modern reissue. Um, if I try to find something like this from World War II, could be a bit more expensive because it can be kind of tricky to find, um, and especially a genuine military model watches generally carry a higher price tag as well. And instead of dealing with a watch that would be from the 40s, at least 80 years old, right? Uh, or so. At least this one's about 30, right? Or less than right now, currently. And so that's a 50-year difference. So, so you got that. But this is very faithful to what it might have been back in World War II, which is cool. And, you're into military watches and especially pilot watches. I think this is a pretty unique and cool alternative to, I would say, the more mainstream examples from World War II, which would be like the German Fliegers, the A or the B type dials, which I think are cool too. But I've seen them so much that I got kind of sick and bored of them. I recognize they're still great watches, and there's a lot of brands that make it, but that's just it. Though. They're so uh, relatively uh, plain and generic because they all follow the same A or B pattern of dial layout and look. You can get them as cheap as some watches for under 100, or you can go several thousands with like something from, like, say, IWC. And other than knowing what the brand is and maybe it might show on the dial, otherwise a lot of times they're just very sterile and they don't have any branding on them. So I don't know if you would really be able to tell the difference. And overall, they look all exactly the same, and can't imagine they perform all that differently. But anyways, uh, performance-wise, out of the way, I mean, I just think that this is kind of cool to be just a different kind of World War II military pilot watch than, I would say your more standard Flieger options. Let's get another close-up. So yeah, I don't know what you guys think. Probably guys with bigger wrists will be pretty turned off by this because they generally don't like small watches, and this really pushes or goes beyond the limits. But I think if you just take it in the context in which these things were made and from the time period, it's like, well, that's the way it is. And if you give yourself a chance to, again, acclimate to the proportions of what's here over what you're used to, you, it doesn't look that small after a while, and it looks fairly normal, and maybe pretty good on wrist. So there we go. Anyways, thanks for tuning in. It's getting late. I gotta get to bed. I really want to wear this to give it a test run at work tomorrow, but it's going to be hot as a mofo tomorrow, and I do not want to wear leather. And I don't have my other straps in yet, so I'll probably have to bow out of this and probably switch to something that's can handle me being sweaty tomorrow without messing up the band. So sorry, but it would definitely be seeing more of this in the coming days, if not weeks as well. All right, thanks for tuning in, and enjoy your watches.